Hi there. Welcome to our next session. We're joined by somebody really special, somebody who I have looked up to for inspiration, somebody who has personally inspired me with her humility and grace, somebody who's kind of defined her own path in difficult times and gave back to many others through her social work in good times. Please welcome Anuaga, who doesn't need much of an introduction, but I will make an humble attempt to try and give you a few key highlights from her life and her career. So Anu, as we know, has been is director on the board of Thermax, which is a very well-known engineering company. She retired as the chairperson of Thermax in October 2004. She began her career quite some time back, which was in 1985, where she did a variety of roles and successfully transitioned it to her daughter. As chairperson of Thermax, Anu anchored the turnaround of the company through four major initiatives, which was reconstitution of the board, shedding non-core activities, right sizing of operations, and increased focus on the customer. She's completely instrumental in driving a really high performance culture in Thermax. Apart from that, Anu is well known for her passion and her zeal for social work. She has dedicated most of her time, supporting others who are passionate about these causes with a particular focus on underprivileged children. She is the force behind Akanksha and also, supported the initiative Teach for India, making it one of the most impactful social initiatives in the country. She's been very active in various national and local associations like CII, where she served as the chairperson of CII's Western region. She has written extensively and given talks on corporate governance, well-known leader in the space of corporate social responsibility and role of women and education. So please join me in welcoming Anu. Hi, Anu.
Hi.
Welcome to our session. Always a pleasure to be in conversation with you. I think, over the years, there's so much we have exchanged that, it almost feels that whenever I'm going through a tough time, I always think of what Anu would be doing. So I
Which
think
Anu? You or me? We are both
you,
Anus.
I know. Well, I'll keep myself as Anuranjita, which is a rather long name. You're the original Anu. So I think there's just so much I know about you. It almost feels like as comfortable as being with somebody at home. So, but thank you again for being here. I really cherish your support in the purpose or the mission that we are pursuing through WiT-Ace. And I know how passionate you are about giving back. So that's a little bit I'm trying to do. Taking the lead from you.
Anu,
Um,
you are very modest and saying too many unnecessary, exaggerated words for me. But we are all on our journey together and we learn from each other. There's no one way learning.
Absolutely. I was just going to say one word which defines you is humility, and you just kind of, said it yourself. So you're humble enough to say that I'm doing enough, whereas I think I have a long way to go. But on that happy note, I think, as you said, we are all on a journey, and the different choices we make at different points of time in our life. I mean, we make choices every day, and I think last 18 months, Anu, I mean, we've seen such a tough time with people around us. So I was curious about some of the choices that you've made, whether recently or in the past, that have really defined you and governed your path.
Sure. Uh, let's not have the arrogance to think that everything is your choice. Uh, there
Yeah.
is destiny, and so let's not think everything is, especially during these difficult COVID days. I mean, whose turn it is to die? We don't know. We just don't know. We just talked about someone taking extremely good care and still dying. So, again, okay, but let me start by saying I think the choice that has really made a huge difference in my life is the right choice of my partner, my husband. When I was growing up in my maternal family, I was encouraged and given a lot of independence, but I was constantly not told, but subtly I felt that as a woman, I could do this far and no more. Whereas my husband made me realize I was no different from any human being, and I didn't have to take his permission for anything. I could define how I wanted to lead my life. And I haven't seen many husbands and doing that. It really made me grow up as a human being, challenge many things in my life. So I really feel that right choice, which also you could say was destiny, has really defined me. Uh, on my part, I decided by choice to invest in meaningful relationships. And I would say that what gives me a lot of satisfaction and happiness is the relationship I enjoyed with my husband, with my children, and my grandchildren. And that choice, and that is a choice I would say I made then at a time when life was very difficult. I deciding to go for Vipassana 4 times in my life has been a major factor in my life. I think another choice is learning and deciding to step down from positions when it's time to leave that role. For example, I was at 60. I said I will not be the chairperson of Thermax. And at that time, I was in the public media, very often, and it was difficult. But I'm glad I made that choice to do that. I think another choice is to say no to positions which are offered. If you grab every position that's offered, I think it will clutter up your life and not leave you time for the things you want to do. So when CII wanted me to be the president and kept saying, I'll be the first woman president, and I said no because I had stepped down from the corporate world. It didn't make sense to be the chair of CII, which is a business body. When they asked me to be the head of Aspen Institute in India, again I said no. I didn't feel, I love Aspen, I'm on the board, but to be the chair and go abroad and take political missions was not what I wanted to do. So saying no also at the right time is an important choice. So I would say these are some of them.
Beautiful. I think what resonates with me is saying no. I
Hmm.
think sometimes in life we become, and I don't say this negatively, but we all become a little greedy.
Hmm.
You know, I
Yeah,
want,
absolutely. And the
yeah,
glamour. They said, imagine you'll be the first woman in India,
yeah,
sounded wonderful.
yeah.
Or Aspen, which is a global organization, to be head in India, again, glamorous. Recently, I was asked to be on the board of an international group based in London. Again, sounded wonderful. 4 times trips to London, which I love. But I knew instinctively now is not the time.
Yeah, actually, I'm just going to delve a little deeper into that. How do you
Hmm.
know when to say no? And what do you weigh that against? Because, for people, confused people like me, we become greedy. ये भी करना है, फिट भी करना है, अनु से भी बात करना है, conference भी करना है. So sometimes the whole prioritization goes for a toss because maybe I'm not clear, but just I'm curious, how would you? I mean, these are very, very lucrative offers which have come your way.
Not
So obviously,
lucrative means financially lucrative.
no, no, I don't mean financially.
Not lucrative. Very
No,
tempting, very tempting, very, yeah,
yeah,
glamorous.
yeah. So I meant like from a status,
Yeah,
what it brings to you, in terms of how you will be. I mean, you're visible enough, but just adding to that, as you said, the glamour of it. So, what made you say no to these?
I think I some maybe I will keep going back to my meditation, because I think that has helped me to understand what I want to do at each stage of my life, and to focus on relationships. To me, that has brought me so much satisfaction in life, not the position, not the power, not the money. But, and I've seen rotten relationships at the top, being people at the top. And I always say, will I have time for that? The only bad judgment where I should have said no, and I didn't, was accepting the Rajya Sabha seat. That, if you ask me looking back, I would not have done it. I thought I will, I glamorized it by, I thought I'll be able to do something for the country, which I couldn't. I didn't make any difference. So some choices, I'm not saying every one has been right, but uh, I think most, I think you would also know that this is stretching myself and it will be at the cost of something. What is that cost? And if you really think about it, you will decide, is it worth paying that cost or not? Sometimes you feel it's worth it.
Hmm.
So I think when I, for example, spoke up against what happened in Gujarat in 2002, I knew the cost could be very high. My family could be targeted, my business could be targeted. But there are some things which I feel so passionately. One of them is uh, our diversity and our intercommunity harmony, that I'm willing to take that gamble. But uh, otherwise, I want to see, is it worth it? At my age, what will I have to trade off to
Hmm.
do what I want to do, what I'm against? And is it more for external things or for inner satisfaction? If it's for external kudos or glamour, I tend to say no nowadays.
Wonderful.
Maybe, Anu, you are much younger than me. Wisdom will come a
Not
little.
much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wisdom hasn't yet arrived.
Yeah. Oh, it has arrived in very big doses. But you
Oh,
push yourself too much.
yeah, I keep trying hard. There's so much to do, and I just feel that
Yeah.
time's running out. I don't know, it's maybe my mental outlook, but
But Anu, you just before the thing started, you told me about your friends who died and they have two young children.
yes,
The world goes on without anyone.
I know.
Let's remember, our stay on this earth is short, our roles dispensable, and our impact inconsequential. If you remember that, you will know that if you say no, there'll be someone even perhaps better who will say yes, and the
Yeah,
thing will be done. We are not needed everywhere.
that's true, and that's a great reminder. And as I was listening to you and you talked about Gujarat, and obviously we've known about some of the brave things that you've done. What really defines you, Anu? How would you define yourself?
Uh, I think I challenge myself, and if it's something I want to do, even however difficult the task is, I will. I mean, let's say when my husband died and I was asked to be the chair of Thermex, I was most hesitant and diffident. But my business, my Thermex is my family legacy. So I felt I owed it to give my best. I don't know if I would have succeeded, but that I had to do. So I challenged myself. CII at that stage asked me to be the chair of Western region with 4 states coming under me. I had never worked. I was active in CII only in HR, but never as in this role. But I took up that. So I'm willing to take up challenges. That I would say is definitely one of the things I would. I challenge the myths that float around. For example, there is a myth that after 60 or 70, you can't change yourself. You have to take me as I am. Nonsense. You can change anytime you want to change, if you want to. Another myth that goes around is that you can't make good friends after a certain age. Your best friends are when you were in school or college. Again, nonsense. Some of my best friends have come my way in my 70s.
Can I
So
put my
these,
hand? Maybe not in the
yes, yes,
list, might be my fifth list, but somewhere in that list.
yes, of course. I was very dependent and adaptive, uh, and now I'm fiercely independent, and uh, at times with that, a little bit of rigidity comes also. That adaptability is not there. I'm highly disciplined to things I'm committed to. For example, I meditate every day for an hour, used to walk for an hour, now 40 minutes or 35 minutes, exercise for 45 minutes. So these are things which define me, commitment to what I want to do.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. There's a question which comes to my mind. I know you have lovely grandchildren, and you were talking about myths. I often struggle with my kids who are now 17 and 23 that this is how they are, and this is how the world is around them. And I wonder, how would you deal with that when you know, and from your experience and wisdom, you know that things are yet evolving. I mean, today there's a lot of people listening to you who probably, think this is how they have been groomed, this is how life is. And it kind of closes the possibilities on in our mind to do something different, to change. And, we're seeing a lot of stuff going on in the job market where people have to change their skill set because the world has changed after COVID. So I think that whole growth mindset or the open mindset that you just alluded to, what would be your advice to my children? As I told you, Mama, this is not how I am. This is how my world is. This is the music I hear. This is the food I eat. And these are my five best friends.
I
So,
think the way you define yourself, you have to respect other people's decision to define themselves the way they want. If and you have to make allowance for the young age to experiment and learn. And the more we nag, we put them in a rebellious mood sometimes. But if we occasionally have a chat with them one on one, and I find with my grandchildren that really helps. By sometimes I nag them and they get quite annoyed. Uh, oh, I know you nag, nag, nag. But we have a very open. First of all, have you created a relationship with anyone where you have a right to tell them?
mhm.
And that's a very special relationship. So, have you invested in them really well? Do they trust you? Do they respect you? So, and do you give allowance to for them to make mistakes and learn? I have made thousands of mistakes, and that's how I've learned. Why wouldn't I give them that opportunity also? So,
Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
a great point. Uh, I'm going to move on to a program which we have launched, Anu, which is called Find the Light, which is, we call it FTL. We've launched this program for a lot of COVID impacted families, mainly who've lost bread earners. And unfortunately, they're largely women who've been impacted, where husbands have been impacted and there's been sudden demise. And they're struggling for two reasons. One is, in spite of being educated, not being financially savvy. So
Mm.
we've come across, these are women who are postgrads, who understand, they probably worked at some point of time, taken breaks. We've now got hundreds of these who are we trying to work with. But what we find is that a lot of them, for example, don't even know if they're nominees on bank accounts of their deceased husband, or they don't know where the PF account is. So financially, even though he may have done something but he wasn't as planned, we find a lot of them struggling. And as much as we're trying to make them financially literate now and helping them, but I wonder that in spite of the debate over the last decades, we yet find, and I'm talking about the educated women, postgraduates, some of them are engineers, yet lagging behind in terms of the engagement on some of the key decisions of families. So
Mm.
just wanted to get your perspective and thoughts on that.
You come to a completely wrong person for this, because I've had a mental block against financial things and technical things. So, and this is not a thing I wanted to overcome. If I wanted to, I'm sure I could have. But I didn't even, my energy, I didn't want to put in those directions. So I'm really, so in my case, though I have also achieved a few things, but these are things I had a mental block. And I was lucky where I had a family office that took care of everything. And husband who he pushed me into many directions, but not in these. He also didn't push me. I didn't push myself. So but I would say by and large, during my bringing up, when I was a kid, I was constantly told that though I'm better than my brothers in studies, my main aim was to marry and have children. I was never pushed to be a career woman. So, with that, if I'd been pushed right in the early days, I'm sure then I was always encouraged to be dependent on others. And from my maternal family, I was with my in laws. So things were taken care of. In those days, there was no computers technically, but financially, I didn't have to do anything. As soon as I earned my pay when I was a social worker, I willingly just put it in our joint bank account, didn't bother how to do it. In fact, I very often would tell my husband, God is very kind to me. I opened a drawer and found a few thousand rupees there. He says, Ma, he was very gentle with me. He says, what about the thousands you could have lost also? So I didn't keep a daily account of things and got away with it. I don't think men in their job can do that. We women think that we don't really have to know these things and we don't push ourselves. I am talking from my experience. I can't know. So it's sad because suddenly women have to grow up and do these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's uh, when they're under stress, they have to do the most difficult things. So I think every woman should know what her family finances, what the savings are, actively find out what they are, and to be so vulnerable in such an important area is asking for trouble, really trouble. I don't know. This is a question which I may not have been able to answer because I have not pushed myself in this direction.
No, I think you answered in some ways because what I sensed was Anu, they were also a little, I won't say ashamed, but they were a little uncomfortable to even acknowledge that they had engaged. By you sharing that you were
Hmm.
in a similar state, and
Yeah.
then you're recommending that they should know it's not rocket science, finally, it's easy
It's
to
just
do.
a mental block. I
Yeah.
hate it. Anu, you won't believe I counted today also like this, on my fingers, like this. I'm so. And again, for me, I've always had the backing of the office to help me. And I've never felt bad to say I don't know. And there were finance giants all around me to help me understand everything. But I was very good with the people's issues, but the financial issues were my really weakest spot. But I would not ask people to get away from mastering this by saying that's my weak point and I don't like it. There are many things which you don't like and you get over it. I think I've learned my lesson. I should have pushed myself much earlier about this. I mean, when I am on webinar, I press the wrong thing and I'm out of it. And it's so embarrassing. For 15 minutes, they're waiting and I can't get back, you know. So uh, I don't see why women can't master this. And for the younger ones, I definitely urge them don't have these myths that men are good at technical and financial things and we are not. We are, you see ICICI, how many women are at the top? So it's not rocket science or it's not something left brain and right brain and all that nonsense. We can do it. and I would,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Great. So I wanna move on to all the social work that you've been engaged for over years, and not just Akanksha, but the big one, which at least I've, thanks to you, I've kind of got associated in some way, is Teach for India. And it's a real, I would say, an ignition that has happened in the country where youngsters, even my kids, have wanted to be associated and give back. It is seen as a, and knowing the depths of the program, it is truly, I wouldn't even say, I mean, impressive would be very shallow for me, but it is really fulfilling to see what is going on now that I've seen the kids. But how did that engagement come about, and what does that mean for you?
See, Annu, by training, I'm a social worker, but destiny took me to the corporate world. And yet, I always did some little bit of work in the social field all through my life. I don't know if I ever told you, I picked up two children who were begging on the main street of Pune and brought them home with their parents' consent, took them to a school, enrolled them. And I think it had a wonderful experience for my daughter, who was at that time about 7 or 8. But within a week, they ran away. They didn't want to stay. They felt they valued their freedom more than all the luxuries that I could offer them. But it was a wonderful experience. I was involved with Mother Teresa as well. So somewhere, but small things, nothing great. My son, when he came back after 8 years of being abroad, was very keen that a substantial part of our earnings should go towards social causes. And he put a gun at me and he said, unless you're willing to give 80% of what we earn, I will go back to England. And I hate anyone compelling me to do something. So I said, go. But of course, in the evening, my daughter, my son in law, we all sat down and my son apologized. And he said, I didn't want to say that you have to do it, but mom, you don't have a very luxurious lifestyle at all. You are by nature a social worker. So why not channelize it in a meaningful way? And in a few weeks after this conversation, he died. So this was going through my head. And I was looking for some credible NGO and a wonderful person who I could trust. And everyone said, go to Bombay and meet Shaheen Mistry, who started at 18 Akanksha, which later, uh, uh, from a center, it was a program where poor children, underprivileged children, went to municipal or low income private schools and came to a center for 2 hours to learn maths, English, and values and have a little fun. But they didn't do very well in studies, in the examinations, because we had them for only 2 hours. So we decided to uh, adopt schools and have them the full time. And we dropped the center model. And when we have 21 schools at present. And Shine and I got along very well. I brought Akanksha centers to Pune. She asked me to join the board. And about 12 years ago, she said, Anu, I want to start a movement which I want every child to be touched and do well. And will you join me? And will you partner me? And I gladly said yes. And that was the beginning of Teach for India. And Shaheen's enthusiasm, if you know her, rubs on us. It rubbed on my daughter also, fortunately. She's passionate about education cause. So I think, and then we decided that 30% of our dividend income will go towards philanthropy. And now we want to scale it up to 50 over a little while. And my son in law has partnered me. My grandchildren used to make fun of us because we were all the time talking of Akanksha and Teach for India, Mayor and I. And they would sometimes tell me, Annu, we will give that 30%, now leave us alone. We also didn't consult them for the causes they are interested in. My grandson is interested in health issues, my daughter for animals. And I used to look down on an issue of animals. I said, when people are dying, you want to give to animals? And I didn't respect her. But my son-in-law has taught us to every quarter sit with them, tell them our progress, what we are doing, which are the causes we are helping, take in their things and small amounts, but give it to the causes they respect. So as a family, it's fun when you have support of everyone, you know. So they make fun of it, but I know in deep down they're for it. So I think uh, after retirement, uh, this is the thing that sustains me. I love it. Hmm. So human rights is another cause which I feel strongly. But my main thing is underprivileged children education. Yeah.
That's so wonderful. And I think that's a real inspiration. I wish when I grow up, I become like you. So that's
Oh
probably.
no, don't say that. Then I could say, I wish when I was younger I was
Oh,
like
no,
you.
no, no, no,
So
no.
then we can go. If my aunt had been my uncle, can be a game which we can play.
Teach for India is a big one, and I
But
know,
that's not my thing. That's my Shaheen's.
I know,
And
I
I just helped her. But
I
she's
felt
the
kind
one.
of the same thing when you got us connected, and anything we
No,
can
no.
help her.
I really, but any cause, if you're passionate about, it gives you such a meaning, such a enthusiasm to look forward to. I feel a little down and not so healthy and mentally down. And there's a Teach for India or an Akanksha board meeting. Oh my God, I'm full of life again, you know.
Yeah, I have to share one really funny incident with you. So when I was deciding to start WiT-Ace, the one I spoke to you, and I also spoke to Prameet, and I was saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to give up my corporate career and do something so different. And what if it doesn't work? What will I do? There's this loss of identity that I was suffering from because 25 years, a visiting card from a big bank and all of that."
Citibank.
And then the question he asked me was, "What are you afraid of?" And I said, "What if it doesn't work?" He said, "So what will you do?" I said, "Well, I'll go work for another cause or I'll go find another job." And then he said, "Well, that's not such a bad second option. And that
Absolutely,
really made me jump.
absolutely, and
That's
look, Anu, how lucky and blessed we are. You have choice of options of different careers, moving from one to the other, not only for financial reasons, but for your
yeah,
satisfaction. I mean, we are so damn lucky, and we sit and say, "What if this didn't work? If it didn't work, we do something else." You
yeah,
you have to internalize your success. That whatever you touched, you have succeeded, and
yeah.
succeeded hugely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of gratitude for what life
No,
has.
but internalizing your success and not wanting external, uh, what do you say, uh,
External
pats,
credit.
accreditation or pats, but
Yeah,
really have confidence. And in success, failure comes. Some parts of failure, nobody is successful in everything that they've touched. Have you? I think God only would be there.
yes, absolutely. So my last question would be around, there is just you and I started talking about COVID and what's gone on over the last 18 months. There is fear about the third wave right now. There's the Delta variant, which people are talking about. And in trying times like this, I mean, having gone through it myself, I know how tough this can be on families. Um, as we brace for an uncertain future, which I hope will be better than the past, what would be your advice to people out there? And it could be of any strata. So it's a little broad, but I'm just saying, like, what would you tell people who kind of have struggled through the second wave, now bracing through the third wave? I'm not talking necessarily about people like you and me who had access to amenities, but 90% of India probably doesn't. So, what would be your one or two pieces of advice to them to brace this?
You know, this pandemic has, in a way, leveled all of us, whether you are a rich woman or a poor woman. It could hit anyone you love or yourself. So, in a way, it's leveled us in all. And there are things over which you have a little bit of control. Nothing you have full control, but you have control over yourself your attitude, but you don't have control over the external things. COVID, you don't have control. Death of a dear one, you don't have control. But how you will respond to it, you have a little bit of control. So I would say learn to be learn to be with peace with yourself, learn to stay with equanimity, because things will go up and down in your life. That's the nature of our lives. But how you decide to respond will decide whether you go through huge roller coaster rides and become very happy at some time, very low at another time, but all live on an even keel. And that will not happen overnight. You have to really work on that by find meditation. For me help, for someone else you have to find what that thing helps. You have to find a good relationship with people, because that will count. I mean, you might lose that person, but I have found if you have good relationships with people, to deal with death is relatively easier than if you're full of guilt. If I'd only done this for them, if I'd only done that. Of course, for people who are poor, losing a person could mean financial loss also. It's very easy for me to sit in a lovely, comfortable house and give advice. I've never been on the other side where I'm really without food or without shelter. And I'm full of admiration who manage that kind of difficulty. So I haven't been in those shoes, Anu, to really talk about it. But I know that investing in yourself over time, it doesn't happen when COVID happens. Now I'll start investing in myself. It doesn't happen. Over time, find time for yourself and for relationships that matter. That helps you throughout life, is what I would say.
Oh, great. I think I hope people find strength in those words, and may peace prevail for all.
Yes.
And I think it's always great to have you, Anu. As I started the session, I told you that. But thank you again for being with us, and thank you. I think there are thousands of people watching you today, and I do hope that there are some valuable takeaways from this conversation. So thank you again, as always.
Thanks from one Anu to another Anu. Thank you, Anu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Bye bye.